If you're rocking with the youth, you know what to do. Hit that like and subscribe button so you never miss out on a video. Today, we are talking about Miami versus UAB. After every game, me and the guys from Kane's Legacy will give you our instant reaction from what we just saw. So this is how it's going to go down. The game will end. I'll get Chris on the line, and we're going to talk about it. We haven't pre-recorded anything or anything. These are just two guys talking about their perspective of what they saw in the game. Today, Miami wins 31-14. I got Chris from Kane's Legacy. Chris, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, Grant. How you doing?
Man, doing good, doing good. Real quick, Chris, before we get in, dive into this game, I do want to give you a chance to announce the different things that you're doing over at Kane's Legacy, and also you're with Kane's Insight. So go ahead and let the people know where they can find your content and the different kind of content that you put out for those who don't know.
Well, number one place is our Twitter account at Kane's Legacy. Like if you don't know us at all, we like to delve into the history of the program quite a bit, and compare things to where it is now. And our biggest thing just wrapped up, like I guess for the past like 6 months, and since like quarantine started, we've been counting down to the season. So that was like 178 days or something crazy of our countdown every day. Counting down a different stat or a different player or whatever it might be, from Hurricanes history. So that's a nice little like thing off our plate that we did every morning. So now it's kind of transitioning full gear into season mode. For Kane's Insight, we'll do a mailbag every week. I have a couple other articles where we highlight big games in Kane's history that would have taken place like during that game week. Just to kind of bring some of the past into the modern day, and try to educate as many fans about the great legacy of the Hurricanes program.
All right, so let's get right into this, man. Miami wins 31-14. 17 points in the third quarter really put Miami over the edge. Um, let's start off with, is there anything that shocked you about what you saw today?
I guess the biggest thing, and a lot of it is, my own fault, and like get it caught up in like the hype of how things move, and the way the off season can go, and especially after an off season where there was so much turnover on the offensive side of the ball, and you bring in a Derek King, you bring in a Rhett Lashley, and all the other offensive coaches, and then you get all this momentum going on the offensive side without actually seeing them out there playing a game. It's easy to get kind of caught up in that. So like when the offense went out there and it didn't click right away, it took me a second to say, wait, like these guys didn't have spring. The new coaches are pretty much all new, almost all new on the offensive side. The new OC has never worked with this new quarterback, who's never worked with these linemen, who's never worked with these skill guys. It's a lot of moving parts that they had to see how they fit together when you're playing against guys in a different colored jersey. And I guess like my initial surprise was like, oh yeah, this is going to take time. It's not going to be like an innate thing where it's automatically going to be an outstanding offense. So like that kind of once I got back into it, where I was out of the, I'm just happy to see football and actually like looking at the game from an analysis perspective. I was like, oh yeah, this is probably how it's going to go. But the initial shock of, oh yeah, this is going to be work. That's probably the most jarring thing before I came back to earth.
I agree with that, man. I mean, I guess I'm with you. I mean, I'm not going to say I thought that we were going to come out there and be the greatest show on turf, but I did expect more, and actually, at halftime, I was questioning things. I was thinking, did I drink the Kool-Aid a little bit too much, like I told myself I wouldn't? But then, kind of what you said, we got to remember that one, these guys didn't get a regular summer because of the COVID situation. We didn't get a spring because of the COVID situation. We got a new coach, we got a new quarterback, and everything. And it's the first game, so things aren't going to be the best they can be. But I'll tell you something that shocked me. One, I'll give you a positive that shocked me was how Derek King does not put the ball in harm's way.
Yeah.
There was very rare of a time that I thought, Derek King was not perfect, and we could talk about that, but I didn't see him throw, into triple coverage. I didn't see him take unnecessary sacks. There was a lot of times that I was thinking, man, if this was last year, this would be second and long, third and long, or possibly a turnover. And it's something that I guess I didn't expect to see as much on the defensive side. Is we rotated a lot when I didn't think that we needed to.
Yeah, I for King especially on your point real quick, Grant, is like, yeah, there were like a lot of plays that he was making early where I said to myself, that's the kind of play that a winning quarterback makes. But it wasn't like him making like a great throw down the seam that ran for a touchdown. It was something little like, being able to escape a little bit and get a pass off to Cam Harris without taking a sack or getting it out of bounds, and not, like little things like that, making a block on a run play where he was out in front of, like little things that he was doing where you're like, oh yeah, I've seen winning quarterbacks make those plays before.
Yeah, and we can talk about a specific point where D Wiggins, he makes an amazing catch on the sideline, gets the toe down and makes the catch. But while they were looking at the replay, I tweeted this out and I was thinking to myself, even if they call this an incomplete pass, it's going to be, I think it was first down, so maybe second. I could be wrong. Like we said, this is right after the game. But it's going to be second and manageable. To whereas if it was last year, it probably would have been a sack because King has such mobility and vision. He was able to escape the pocket, throw the ball across his body, end up hitting D Wiggins, and it was a tough catch to make. It ended up being a first down. But if the referees would have came back and said, okay, it wasn't a catch, they were looking at second and manageable rather than second and 15 or second and 16 like it possibly would have been last year.
Yeah, and that was a beautiful play. And I remember as he was rolling out, he did a lot of, like, one thing that he seemed to really like to do was when the pocket, like once he kind of settled in and moved up in the pocket a little bit, he liked to slide to his right and to see who was open. It wasn't like a run to his right. It was like that, good pocket mobility slide. But as he was sliding to his right, there was that extra pressure. So he had to like turn his back to the receivers and loop around, which is where he made that impressive throw that you just talked about. And it reminded me of like being a little kid and, you're trying to prove to people that you can throw on the run when you're playing out in the street, and then you go across your body and you make that great throw down the sideline. And then maybe it's like 1 out of 10 when you're a kid, you make that great throw and the guy gets his feet down. But I'm like, that's the kind of attitude that I would want in a quarterback, like no play is over until like the whistle blows. Whereas maybe with Williams last year, and even like in years past, even going back to like a Brad Kaya, it's like if you have a guy that can't really move and extend the play in a modern college football game, like you're going to be limited. There's going to be less things that you can do. And unless he's like an absolute stud as a thrower, like some guys are, you're going to be limited. And I think having King, who can extend plays, make big plays, and just get those like 3, 4, 5 yard third down conversions, which he started to do as the game got on and he got more comfortable. Like that stuff is invaluable because it extends drives and it gives everybody else a chance to make plays because it's like, live to see another play kind of deal.
All right, so let's focus on the offense, and then we'll jump into the defense. The offense today ended up with 495 yards, with close to 500 yards. That's amazing. But only 158 yards passing and 337 yards rushing. And I gotta admit, like I said, at halftime, I was a little bit worried. I'm like, I get what Rhett Lashley's trying to do, but things aren't clicking. Give me something that you think this Miami team needs to work on going forward after what you saw today.
Well, on that point, and kind of go back to what we were saying before about surprises. Like my first thought watching the offense in the first half was, where's Brevin? Like where's the design play for Brevin? Where's the rollout screen to Brevin? Where's Brevin in the backfield, catching a little swing and then, being one-on-one with a linebacker or put him out in space against a corner and then do a little bubble or something, where's Brevin in the game plan? Like I saw him on the field, but I didn't see Brevin in the game plan where Rhett was like, okay, we got to get him 5 touches, 6 touches in the first half. I didn't see that. there were two passes. He was targeted twice, but he was targeted in a way that, like one of them was late in the first half and it went through his hands. But, it was both Brevin and Harley sitting down in the location, just a couple yards past the first down marker. And King just picked Brevin. It wasn't like, I'm going to go to Brevin on this play. And while I understand that, you're trying to go with the flow of the game, but he's your guy that the other team can't account for. Like, no other team that we play this year will have a guy, in my opinion, of an equal skill set defensively to what Brevin is on offense in terms of who can cover him, because he's so unique a talent. He's so athletic. He's big. He's physical. He has all these great traits. And so, like, when I didn't see him featured, I wondered why. Like, it didn't make sense to me. Then when you saw in the second half, like how they started to like find little ways of getting him the ball just to get it going, he was breaking 2-3 tackles. He caught that beautiful touchdown, like going down to the ground in the corner of the end zone. Like he was doing exactly what I would have hoped to have seen him do early, because I feel like if he did that early, I feel like the whole offense would have built up confidence quicker than they did, and we probably wouldn't have had the questions we did when we got to the half.
Let me ask you this question, because this did cross my mind. And obviously, the thing about an offense is the offense you see week 1 is going to be a baby compared to what it looks like in week 8, because, the offensive coordinator, the coaches, they put in plays as the year goes on. But is it possible that, we didn't want to show all our plays, our hand, is that a possibility to where tonight we just wanted to do base athleticism, the basically read option style, inside zone, outside zone, streak routes, out routes. There was nothing that was too complex tonight. It was just simply style spread stuff. Do you think that's where we are, or do you think it's just, hey, the offense is going to evolve more?
Oh, I for sure think that they were trying to keep as vanilla a playbook as they could. One of the reasons why I thought maybe Brevin wasn't getting all those looks is because like so much of the offense actually runs through him that there was no way to not show your hand by even like calling a play for Brevin, because so many are gonna go to him. But yeah, I think that was absolutely the case, and you could tell like a little bit, like little things that were happening. I know Lashley loves to run, like if something's working, he'll run it over and over and over again, whether it's consecutively or just inside of the same drive. He likes to keep the same guys on the field that are moving the ball. He did that a lot. There was a lot of plays where that looked like a regular old read where King could have pulled it out and like kind of gone around the edge, but on a lot of those plays, he was giving it to Cam or giving it to Knighton and not pulling, even though, if you're watching it on TV, you see that lane wide open as those DNs start crashing down, and you're like yelling, like, "Why pull it, go!" But he kept giving it. So in my mind, that's Lashley telling him, just that today, just give that. Like, unless you're absolutely 100% sure, if you're 50-50 on it, just give it to Cam and just let him get those 3-4 tough yards. Because I think if King started pulling those, then you have to respect it, and the defense has to stretch itself out, and they can't come crashing down on Cam like they eventually started doing as the game wore on. I think that was something that they told King to, don't worry about pulling it. We'll win this one. Next time we're out there, we go against Louisville, then you pull those. So don't give them too good of a look at how that's going to be once you get outside. So I 100% think that was the case. They're just trying to hold as much as they could, get the win, start to get their feet wet in the offense, and then we'll probably see a much more complex look. And he doesn't run like a super, like here's 900 plays, but I think we'll see a lot more formations. That's more like the Sonny Dykes thing, like aspect coming into it. We'll see more formations, and I think we'll see a lot of variations of personnel too.
All right, guys, we got Chris from Kane's Legacy. Make sure you check him out on Twitter to get all his different content. I will have all his information in the description. Chris, give me an MVP on the offensive side.
It's easy to go with King because he put the 2 touchdowns, 1 throwing, one rushing, and like when he had those bursts of like brilliance running the ball, you were like, this is the guy. But like we also put so much on Cam's shoulders and he responded like constantly. He was battling through tackles. He was never easy to go down. And I don't know, like last year he was pretty big, pretty solid, but like he evolved into a full like Ray Rice style back with like the legs that are almost bigger than his midsection, you know. So he was a powerhouse out there, and he still kept a lot of that speed and agility that's made him a special player when he was younger. So I would go with one of those two guys, and I might just give it to Cam because I think King's gonna have a lot more MVPs as the season goes on. So maybe I'll give this one to Cam.
All right, Cam ended up with 17 rushes, 134 yards, 2 touchdowns, the 66-yarder, which really helped calm me down once he broke that. And then behind him, De'Aaron King had 83 yards. We had the 2 freshman running backs. Both of them had about Jalen 99 carries, Don Chaney 8 carries, both of them around 50 yards. And we remember Chaney had the 33-yarder. Knighton had a 25-yarder. So the rushing game looks good. It looks like the passing game needs to improve a little bit. What is your thoughts on the offensive line? In my opinion, I think the offensive line, I'll be honest with you, I thought they looked a little weak to me. I felt like there was times where they weren't pushing the pile. It was more of the threat of De'Aaron King holding the ball is what opened up creases. What would you say to that?
I think you're right, and I think that's when we heard about what kind of offense was coming in with Lashley and King coming in. One of the things I always tried to say was that it's even if the line improves just by a year older, a new O-line coach, new offense, like a lot of it isn't going to be like automatically because all of the players suddenly get better. A lot of it was going to be that the offense just kind of lends itself to less struggles for the line and what they really did poorly on last year, and that was long pass sets. That really was never going to be a skill set that they succeeded at. Even the guys on the line, like Scaife is a really good player, but Scaife is more of like a road grader, the guy you want to move forward. So like the pass sets were tough, and you could see it in this game too, that they started to get pushed around whenever King tried to settle in the pocket, which is why he started to move pretty quickly. And then once that starts happening, the line gets less comfortable because they're wondering where he is back there. It's not like you have a statue quarterback, even like a Jaron Williams. Like he'll pretty much be in the spot you expect. But you have a guy like King, he's going to start moving around as soon as because he's going to trying to get the best passing lane for himself to make a good throw, or he's looking for a running option. So the line never knows exactly where he is, which can cause some struggles there too. So I think that's part of it, as they were trying to get comfortable with the offense, with each other, with most of them like sliding to new positions on the line. Like Campbell's now at left tackle. Jared Williams is in his first year with Miami. Scaife is now not playing tackle full time. He's at guard. Gaynor has 2 new guards next to him. Traore is in his first time. So there's a lot of newness to that line. I think they'll get better, but today it was definitely a learning experience for them.
All right. So offensive, I mean, I would, of course, I wish that we were throwing bombs with with De'Aaron King, but I'm pretty happy with how the offense turned out. I mean, that's a lot of yards to put up, and De'Aaron King showed me a lot. To whereas, I think if you don't turn the ball over, it's amazing how when you don't turn the ball over in the fourth quarter, you can look at some tough games and be like, man, we're still in this game because we didn't turn the ball over. So, I'm not too worried about our offense, and I think it will get better. Looking over at the defensive side, let's talk about DJ Ivey. I think a lot of people are going to be on DJ Ivey's head, not only because of what happened tonight, but because of last year. He was suspended for the first game, the fake punt versus Georgia Tech, a couple other things. And you come into the night, he gives up a touchdown. He gives up another big pass. Are we picking on DJ Ivey, or is it time to see what Christian Wilkins and some other the young guys can do?
Well, I think Ivey was already kind of coming into this year as a target, for a lot of people, and not only for opposing offenses, but also for fans who, if you had to pick a guy to be, the scapegoat for a lot of the struggles, I think people are going to go to Ivey first. because he's one of the carryovers. So he started last year, but also, the cornerback position has always been kind of a tough spot because of, Rump struggles recruiting, and then people are always looking over there, and it's an easy position that once someone makes a big mistake, it usually leads to a touchdown or like a 40, 50-yard play. A linebacker can make a mistake and a safety could pick him up, and it's only a 10-yard gain. But an Ivy makes a mistake and it's a 35-yard touchdown or something, So I think people were looking at him right away to be the scapegoat. I don't think he was awful out there. I think the offense that UAB runs is inherently going to force like short passes and things like that. And the one big mistake was the touchdown they threw, just not kind of getting his head around, which if he did, it would have been an interception or an easy, pass defense. But the play was like it was a real fluky, like miracle throw where the guy just tossed it up and it just happened to fall into the hands of the receiver. It wasn't like a particularly well run offensive play. It was just kind of like a 50-50 where Ivy needs to play it better. But I don't think he had a terrible game by any stretch. I would have imagined that the corners would be used a little differently. And I think that Baker kind of like he let them play off a little bit too much considering their entire offense was timing related. But I don't think he was awful. I would say if he starts getting burned, then sure, get him out of there. But people always say, send him to the bench, but we don't have like 5-star guys growing on that bench. We have guys that might be good, but they're young. We don't know what Christian Williams and Corey Couch are. We don't know what the freshmen are, Marcus Clark and those guys, certainly. So, you might bench Ivy, but at least what Ivy is. At least he's a multi-year starter, and you kind of get what he's going to give you. You don't know what the young guys are.
My thing is, he's a multi-year starter on a team that, lost to Louisiana Tech, that lost to Georgia Tech, being a starter on last year's team, that. And let me know if I'm wrong here, okay? I agree with you. I think the easiest thing to say for us fans is get him out and put somebody else in. That's always the easiest thing for us to say. We said it with the quarterback position last year, and we still lost games. But and I can only speak for myself. I think where I have a problem is you mentioned something great about Baker. You mentioned which I want to. That was a great point. Is I feel like we have more talent than UAB. I don't understand why we aren't playing more man. And maybe that's because he knows our DBs can't handle man. I'm not for sure. I'm just talking out loud here. And then you look at the fact of the whole DJ Ivy thing is, how much can we take if every other game it feels like the man's giving up something. I felt like I will say this. I thought our defense would be a lot more impressive. Looking at the stats, I'm trying to pull them up here just to make sure what I saw wasn't crazy. UAB, they only had 14 points. They had 285 yards. They threw for 205 yards and 80 rushing yards. So it's not like they went up and down the field on us. It was the kind of similar to what you said. They were a patient offense. They took dink and dunks, but I don't know. I maybe my expectations were too high. I can tell you this. DJ Ivy has been compared to Mike Rump, by Mike Rump, by fans. They mentioned those two in the same sentence. And I think once they put that in my mind, I expected DJ Ivy with his size, with his speed, he put in a lot of work last offseason. He totally changed his body composition. His length, I just thought he would be a little better.
Yeah.
Tell me if I'm wrong.
I think the one thing that, he looks like Rumpf, whereas ate like Rumpf. I think the one thing that made Rumpf really special was that he was super, super smart. And he played with even smarter guys back at safety. Like he played, like when he was out there playing, he had Reed and Al Blades behind him. He was across from Phil Buchanan and Leonard Myers. Like he was playing around guys that knew how to play. And they played aggressively. Like all of those guys were aggressive players. And also you had a defensive scheme that allowed them to be aggressive at all times. Like Rumpf, when he got up in somebody's face, it wasn't going to be, I'm going to stand 2 yards from you, but off the snap, I'm going to let you run and go where you want. Like that would never happen in 99, 2000. That was not the way we played. Yet, like, I'm watching them today, and I'm looking at, knowing full well, like, there was a series, and the second play, it was like the same pass route 2 times in a row. The first one was a little quick slant where the guy gets a free release, even though Al was like 2-3 yards off of him, gets a free release, comes inside, catches it, gets like 4 or 5 yards. Then the next play was the same thing, free release, but Al's playing a little bit tighter. Then he gets his hands in there and knocks it away, and it was, turnover because they had to punt the ball away. But I'm thinking to myself, why don't you let Al just get in that guy's face and disrupt him as soon as he comes off that line? Because that quarterback was not good. He was not a good quarterback. He's probably going to be one of the worst 2 quarterbacks that we'll see this season. You're going to give that guy who knows exactly where he's going. Coaches told him, throw the slant. If that slant's not there because Al got in his face and disrupted him at the line, he's going to get a sack. He's going down, or he's going to throw it out of bounds like he did a lot. So if you have Ivy, who's physically very impressive, who has that length like you mentioned, like, he should be up in receivers' face all day long. He should make those receivers hate to see him come across the line from him, because they know that they're going to get beat up the first 2-3 seconds of their route. And they're going to have to work for every single second of that route. So if they do eventually break free, it's going to be a second and a half after than it should be, which means those ends have a chance to make a play. So right from the start, I would have had the corners up there disrupting, like you said, playing that like true man coverage and then forcing UAB to adjust, because we never forced them to adjust. Like, they didn't have a great offensive game because they just aren't very good on offense, in my opinion, after watching them now for this week and then even the last time out against Central Arkansas. But we never forced them into a turnover, which is impossible to imagine with the way that kid throws the ball. So, like,
he was just throwing. Honestly, he was just throwing it up and praying that it fell into the receiver's hand.
Yeah, exactly. It didn't make any sense. Like, I even tweeted last week when I was watching the Central Arkansas game, like, he threw one over the middle of the field last week that was just like, someone will get it. Like, I don't know who's gonna catch this, but someone will catch it. Like when you're a little kid, you, instead of like kicking off, you just throw it to the other team. It looked like that. I'm like, Bolden's gonna have 5 picks. If this is how he plays, Bolden's gonna have 5 interceptions. Gervin's gonna have an interception. And we weren't forcing him to throw that pass because their guys were just running the routes they wanted to run. He couldn't hit some of them, but we never forced him to make a really tough decision, which would have led to an interception.
Let me ask you this, and this is something that has always bothered me about Coach Baker. Or I don't know if it's Coach Baker, I don't know if it's Coach Diaz, but I feel like since Coach Baker has gotten here, there has been a rotation of safeties. It's almost like one series, these 2 safeties are in, the next series, those 2 safeties are in. There's a rotating of safeties, and I understand we got talented players, we got to get talent on the field. But at the same time, to be fair for DJ Ivey, because I'm hard on DJ Ivey, but I got to be fair. As a I played corner in high school and at JUCO, you build a relationship with your safety. Throughout the season, you learn that, if a receiver goes this way, I know my safety is going to be that way. And if I tap my head, the safety knows what that means. You build a relationship with your safeties. What do you think about the rotations of our safeties? Is that not weird to you, or am I nitpicking?
I think it is, and I think they get so heavy into that, like, this is the way the rotation will go, and like you're right, Baker's been doing that for a while because they do it on the defensive line. They're very like, this is how we're going to move through. He will play this many plays, and they do it with the safeties. But if you think back to even 2017, like, when you're looking at that defense, like, who was playing safety. Redwine and Johnson were playing safety. And those guys were super comfortable with each other because they've been playing with each other since Killian. So, like, years and years in the past. So they had 6, 7, 8 years of experience playing near each other. So that's invaluable. Like you said, as a DB, you know how important it is to be playing near and, like, have that whole boundary of the defense, that whole back 4, know where the other people are going to be. It's important for linebackers to know where the safeties are going to be. So that rotation of the safeties even affects the linebackers and how comfortable they are. Like, that's why I always say, like, Shaq Quarterman was best, like, when he was younger in 2017 and 2016, because he had safeties behind him who would, number one, would always have his back if he made a mistake. Like, there was very rarely like a big play over the middle of the field that went beyond Shaq and got through the safeties too. And number two, he knew exactly where those guys behind him would be, and they were probably communicating with him constantly. You put a rotation of safeties, like, well, who takes the lead? Who's the main communicator? Who tells the corners like where to go? It makes it a lot tougher, especially when you know that a couple of those guys are just probably going to be the better athletes, probably have the higher ceiling. You want to just kind of run with those guys and let them make some mistakes here or there, but ultimately your defense will be better off for it.
All right. Is there anything that surprised you about the defense today?
Yeah, my biggest surprise, and like if I were to pick a defensive MVP, it's going to sound kind of weird considering like what's happened over the last 2 years, but I would probably say Nesta Silvera. Nesta was playing football out there. He looked like the guy that we all saw in the highlight tapes, because when those Heritage guys sat down to pick their schools, and we kind of knew that the DBs weren't going to pick Miami, and we kind of saw the writing on the wall. But when Nesta picked the U, we were like, this is the guy. This is the guy who's going to be the Sap. This is the guy that's going to be the William Joseph, the Cortez Kennedy. This guy is going to be a stud on the line, because he's like from day one. Like, what we think about Leonard Taylor, like a lot of people thought that about Nesta coming in. And the last 2 years really haven't been that, with some injuries and this and that. But when I saw him out on the field, like my first reaction was that he looks different. He looks like a pro, And usually when you think about that, like, or when I think about a defensive lineman, like Jalen Phillips, like bulked up. Jalen Phillips got a lot bigger, and that made me say he looks like a pro. But Nesta, he slimmed down. He looks like he got control of his weight. Looks like when he got, a better overall conditioning for his body, because that quickness that I saw today, that was what I've been hoping to see for a couple of years. That's the kind of quickness that's going to get him some money when he makes it into the NFL, because if he plays like that all season, like, offensive lines will have a lot of problems. Like, I don't know if like he has the Gerald Willis when he in 2017 when he was out there, 2017, 2018. But when he was out there, he was dominant. In 2018, he was dominant, right? So if we get that from Willis this year, that defensive line will be one of the best in the country, for sure.
I agree with that. I thought Nesta had a good game. I thought there were several plays where, the ball snapped, and I look back, and Nesta's either pushing the offensive lineman in the backfield, or he's forcing the running back to run a different way. I'll say what shocked me is, and just to kind of let the people know, if they don't already know from watching the show the last couple of years, is I gotta see it to believe it type of guy. Mm-hmm. And I've been hearing a lot about Jalen Phillips, about J.J. Phillips, and, about how much size he's put on, and my thing was, this is a kid who hasn't played football in a couple years, who had to medically retire. So I got to see it to believe it. Now, I'm not saying that he looked like an unstoppable force out there. But what I can tell you is when he gets into, full football mode, because it's going to take you a while. You haven't played football in a couple years. This kid can be special. When I looked at this kid, I'm like, this guy has the size. And then I'm looking at his get off. And if you look at that first drive, UAB did a good job of taking advantage of our aggressiveness, taking advantage of knowing our D-line was going to be hungry, him and Roche, because it was like, snap the ball, get off, they're already back there. And there was a couple times where this kid, it was like the blink of an eye. And I think once we get later on into the season and he gets into a groove, I think he's going to be a handful. And a lot of people have said this to me. A lot of people have talked about him. But to actually kind of see him on the field, I was like, man, okay, now I'm starting to believe in the hype a little bit.
Yeah, I've been excited about him. As soon as we got the news that he was officially transferring, you go back and watch, like, there wasn't a ton of UCLA tape. He had, like, as the first season he played a decent amount. He got some good games in. Then the injuries started to affect him, but there were some games that, especially his first game as a college player against Texas A&M. We had posted some clips from it a little while ago, but, like, there were some plays we were looking at like, wow, this kid, the sky's the limit. Sky's the limit on this kid. And then, like you said, the year's off, and you never know what's going to happen with that when you miss that much time. And is he maturing himself, like, mentally too, to get through that? Because sometimes you're hyped up as much as a kid like that was. A lot of that struggle is mental once you have things like start to be taken away from you. So how ready is he mentally to get back out there on the field? And like you said, like, there was a lot of really good signs from that tonight. I think the offense that the UAB runs was designed to limit the effectiveness of pass rushers, especially from the outside. But there's going to be some games where you saw it start to turn a little bit once UAB fell behind. There's going to be some games and teams we play that are going to try to, drop back for, 5 steps, 7 steps, and 15 is going to get to him. More share than not. 15 will get there. And on that note, another guy that on that D line that stood out to me, you had Cam Williams, who, kind of forgotten about because there's been so many, like Jafari Harvey gets a lot of hype. The new guys get a lot of hype, the young incoming freshmen, but you had him playing that, Rousseau kind of role and sliding in at D tackle a little bit on the pass rushing down. So if that's his role and he gets comfortable with that throughout the year, that's one thing that we didn't have once Rousseau stepped away. So if we have that guy who you can throw out there at tackle and, like, rush from the inside with that length, I'd be very excited.
All right. So let's look at special teams. And listen, KJ Osborne was named punt kick returner for the Minnesota Vikings, and I put out a video congratulating him. And I said, I wonder if Mark Pope is going to be able to, to hold that position down, because honestly, and I want to give a shout out to Borregales and Lou Headley, because special teams, we really don't talk about them unless they make a mistake. And today, Mark Pope made the mistake, muffed a punt. I think it was one punt return or kick return was very iffy. He was running backwards. First, give me your special teams MVP if you have one. And two, do you have any concerns with Mark Pope being our kickoff and punt returner?
Well, Borregales hit a field goal, so, like, he's my MVP. He's my guy.
Hey,
you got
we
one.
got a crown.
I'm with you. I was hoping that at the end of the first half, when they ran, I guess on third down play, they ran something to try to get, like, a couple yards back when it was 3rd and 19 or whatever. If they would have gotten it down to, like, 4th and 10 or so, I think they would have kicked the field goal from, like, 50 something yards. And I'm like, that how perfect that would have been, get Borregales out there and have him hit a 50+ yarder after what he did to us last year. But I'm just happy to see him out there kicking field goals. I'm very excited about having that family as our kicker for the next 5 years. That's going to be great. But for Pope, yeah, he made me nervous, and he made me nervous because the fumble, obviously, but like you said, on the one where he started running backwards and got close to that goal line. So much about being a return man is, like, having a feel for it and just kind of, like, having that innate, like, I know exactly where I am in the field, and even though I can't see them, I know where the coverage team is going to be. Once he like made that run on the goal line and kind of got close to safety land, he did work his way out and make some nice plays in space. I think they're using that as a chance to get the ball in his hands to kind of get him, like, involved in the game. I don't know if that's the best bet for it. I don't know if I would pick a guy who likes to move laterally as my punt returner. I think I might want a guy who could just get me some consistent yardage like KJ was. KJ always impressed me because he never looked like he was extremely fast, but when he got momentum going, you were like, oh yeah, I forgot KJ can move. I'm good with that as my punt returner. Like, you don't have to get me, like, it doesn't have to be Devin Hester running kicks back all the time. If you can get me, like, 10 yards on a punt return, like, consistently, that's great. Like, that is all found money in my mind. So I don't need Pope to try to run side to side. I just need him to be consistent, catch the ball, get me some yardage, and just put the offense in a little bit of a better position.
So let's say Coach called you up and said, "Listen, we're about to bench Pope. Who do you think we should put in as our kickoff and punt returner?" Do you have any thoughts in mind?
I'd like to see what Ford could do out there for sure, because he's a kid that's what, like Jalen Knight. As soon as Rooster gets the ball in his hand, like big things happen. And there was a couple runs that he had where he made like the slightest little cut, and it wasn't like like you're playing Madden or something and you hit the juke stick and like he has that like big exaggerated juke. It was like just the slightest little motion where he changed direction in such a way that he barely broke stride, but the defender looked like a joke. He ran right by him, And that kind of athleticism and that kind of agility is something that I always saw from like those really great returners who can make the slightest little movement, but then everybody else has to adjust to it. All of the angles are destroyed in an instant. So when I saw it on the run plays, I was wowed by it, and I said, man, I wish you can get him in a little bit of space on those returns, and he can build up some momentum on kick return and maybe make the first man miss on a punt return. Like that kid could do some real damage. Plus, like you want to get the ball in his hands 10 times a game. Like that's the kind of talent that Knighton has. So if that's a way you can get him the ball a couple extra times, I'm all for it.
All right, and it's just such a tough position to play because, like I said, most of the time we don't mention the special teams unless something bad happens. And I'm very comfortable with our kicker and punter, but now I think it's time to see what our punt returner and kick returner can do because we had KJ, we've had DJ, all guys that we've been comfortable with. And basically, I'm just going to reiterate everything you said. I'd rather a guy who's safe than a guy that wants to be Devin Hester back there because there was only one Devin Hester, and he's long retired and gone. He'll be in the Hall of Fame soon. I think we touched base on everything, but I do want to talk about another subject. Kane's Insight just tweeted this out. If you don't know, check out Kane's Insight. They put out a lot of Miami Hurricanes good content. They said Manny Diaz says in a post-game presser that quarterback Tate Martell was serving a suspension tonight for a team matter. Now, Tate Martell comes over last year. Everybody's excited, and I was excited too. I was on the Tate Martell train. I'm not even going to sit here and lie to you. I thought he could bring a different dimension to the offense. We get him over here, and he doesn't get the starting job. He misses a couple games last year. He gets in a bowl game, and it doesn't go well. And now you look into this year, in the first game of the year, he's serving a suspension. What are your thoughts on Tate Martell, and when is it time to just let a player go?
I don't know. It's a shame that's where it is, and I saw that too, and I was like, it's not like if it were like a guy who really you're expecting to contribute to the team, there'd be like a whole different range of emotions where you'd be like frustrated and like how could this happen? But for Tate, it was just kind of like you said, it's just like kind of like sad for him. I don't know what happened, but if he got suspended by Coach Diaz, and it was probably something that he did where he, kind of like last year when he left, and kind of did his own thing for a while, then came back late in the season. It makes you kind of scratch your head. How much is he into this, and how much is he trying to get better? How much is he with the team? You never want to see something like that happen, especially during a year when you need everybody to be all in because you never know who you might lose at the drop of a hat. It's not like you're going to lose guys just because of injury. Someone goes to the wrong restaurant or the wrong this or talks to the wrong person, then they might be out for 2 weeks, in quarantine. So you need all these bodies. It's a shame, and I hope that he can get an opportunity to play. But I would guess that this is probably his last year at Miami, especially being a redshirt junior who can grad transfer next year. I would expect that he would probably want to find a place to play. Maybe it's going to be a lower level school where he can, do his thing and be the quarterback and kind of ride it out. maybe it's a place closer back to where he's from in Las Vegas. I don't know, but I would imagine he sees the writing on the wall long term, and he's just gonna kind of play out this season with however much PT he'll get. I don't know how much it'll be, and then next year probably move on.
All right, and I would like to say I'm rooting for Tate, man. I've always rooted for Tate, and I think a lot of people jump down his throat when they don't really know what's going on with him. And here's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping that there's I don't want a personal issue to be going on, but I'm hoping that, there's something going on to where Coach Diaz is saying, I think it's better he's with the team and we're going to help him out rather than just letting the guy do what he wants to, because I feel like if Tate is getting to do if Tate has personal issues, I think it's best that he's with the team, he's with his teammates and with the coaches, and they can help him. But if that's not the case and he's just doing stuff to get suspended from games, then I got to start looking at Coach Diaz. Because if Tate's going to do it, somebody else is going to do it. Your thought.
That's a good point. And, one of the things with Diaz was, letting guys back in and like opening the door. Jeff Thomas, obviously, like there's some questions about that. Like why you bring him back into the program. Like, did you bring him back into the program because it was the best thing for Jeff? Did you bring him back in the program because he could help you? He could help you win, and you kind of like, sacrificed maybe something by doing that, maybe like that trust aspect. And Miami has a long history of that, of walking that fine line between kind of letting the players do what they need to do and be individuals and knowing when to crack down on it. The biggest example is probably the transition from Jimmy Johnson to Dennis Erickson, when Jimmy was so good at managing personalities. Then when Erickson came in, he didn't know how to manage the personalities at all. So he kind of just rode the wave out and like tried to get as far as he could with Jimmy's players and then the hype that brought in a lot of the recruits and just win as much as possible before it all kind of like fell apart. And we saw it fall apart. And then when Butch came in, one of the first things Butch did, I think it was before he even he was like maybe 2 months before summer practice started or something. And then one of his starting linebackers, James Burgess, got into an issue at a club, and Butch suspended him like almost instantly. And he said, like, basically from the idea of even if you're cleared of everything, like you put yourself in a bad situation. So Butch brought it back that, I want to let you be yourself, but you have to remember that the team is above all. Manny has to make sure that he's not going to lose that. And if Tate has done something that can allow Manny to correct some mistakes last year, like the Tate thing last year and the Jeff thing last year, then I would expect Manny to probably, drop that hammer and kind of overcorrect back the other way, so it doesn't look like he's just letting people do whatever they feel like, because with no accountability means no wins at the end of the day.
Hey, I like that. All right, Chris, man. Hey, that's our first game of the year, 31-14. Our first instant reaction. Hey, we got the win and we move on. So, I'm happy. I'm not going to bed upset. I feel like Manny Diaz and the coaching staff, they made adjustments in the second half. So we move on to next week. What are your final thoughts on the game?
I kind of just like glancing through Twitter a little bit, and I see people, kind of like, it wasn't this, it wasn't that, it wasn't a 55-10 win and all that. But like, I don't think you were gonna get that, and I think the fact that we haven't seen any other games yet besides like the games last week, which weren't teams that anybody really wanted to see. Like, we haven't seen the big boys out there playing yet. Sure, some are going to probably win big because they're so much better than the other teams that they're playing, but you're going to see a lot of teams struggle. And I think when we see other teams struggle with teams that they're clearly better than, like I think Miami was clearly better than UAB, I think this win won't look so, or so mediocre, because they'll realize that it's tough to win, after an offseason where a lot of the guys spent time apart, where they're usually together for pretty much the entirety of it. It's tough to win after an offense with huge changeover. It's tough to win after an off season with no spring practice, So a lot of things make week one tough, and we still ended up with a 17-point win, 500 yards of total offense and almost 500 yards total offense, and a quarterback that looked like he knows what he's doing out there. So could be a lot worse. I think it was like I said, I joked before, Grant, was like, what if they lose? It's going to be like a really awkward post game show. And I think you said like just like, how could we possibly sleep? It probably would be like a 10-hour show because we'd just be complaining about things. But it's a win. A win is a win is a win. It's 1-0.
Facts. And I'll leave it with this. The last time we saw Miami win a football game was November 9th of last year. That was the last time we saw our team win a game. So everybody out there complaining, let's be happy about this dub and let's move on to next win. Our last win was against Louisville when we thought everything was great, and obviously we exploded. Ended up losing 3 straight, horrible losses, but now we back. We got a dub. We got us a quarterback, and let's see where the chips fall. So, Chris, I want to thank you for joining us tonight, man. And one more time, go ahead and let the people know where they can find your content, man.
Number one, follow us on Twitter @CanesLegacy. All kinds of history stuff that, hopefully people can learn some things from what we do there. We'd appreciate your support, and we've got a lot of great support throughout the course of the summer, and that's been awesome. And then also CanesInsight.com, where we put articles up, at least like 1 or 2 articles a week over there. A lot of great stuff by those guys, and feel free to check us out on the message board too. We try our best to participate in a positive way, so you can read our stuff on there as well.
All right, man, and you guys already know NMD TV Canes. All Canes all day. If you're rocking with the U, do you know what to do? Like and subscribe. I'll see you guys on the next video.